Okay, so at this point, let me just discuss the f function. So in this case, we will identify whether the score of the student is pass or fail during the examination. So the condition here is if the score is greater than or equal to 75, then the remarks here should be passed. While if it's less than 75, it should be failed. And we are going to use the f function. So first we need to create a logical test. So let's say the average score of Dennis, which is located at F6. If the score is greater than or equal to 75, then the remarks here should be pass if this is true and failed if this is false. Okay, and then hit OK. And then to apply this formula down to the last student, all we need to do is to drag this one like this. Okay, so that's the f function. Again, we create a logical test, and then we have here a value if true and a value if it's false. Okay, next, let's have the nested f function. So in this case, we will identify whether the student was able to get the scholarship, and there are two conditions that we need to satisfy. So number one is if the average score is greater than or equal to 85, and second is if the score in English is greater than 22. Okay, and at this point we will use the nested f function. So nested f function is just an f function inside an f function. So to perform this one, again, we need to create a logical test. So in this case, we will test whether the score is greater than or equal to 85. And if it's true, then we proceed to the next logical test, which is if English is greater than 22, then you are qualified. But if it's less than 22, then not qualified. Okay. And then you put another not qualified here when the first logical test is false in the first place. So that means during your first test, if the result is false, then there's no need um, to check the second test, but rather we go directly to the result, which is not qualified. But if it is true, then we proceed to the second test. So this is to test if the score in English is greater than 22. If true, then qualified. If false, then not qualified. Okay, So something wrong right here. All right. Then to apply this formula, just drag this down to the last student. Okay. So as you can see, let's have the first student. His general or his average is greater than 85, and English score is greater than 22, and so qualified. Okay, so this one qualified, this one also is qualified, and so on. So that's the nested F function. Next, let's move on to the multiple F function. Now at this point, we will put the corresponding grade of the student if it falls to a certain range here as stated in this table. So if the score is between 96 to 100, then the grade that will appear here is A plus. And if it's between 91 to 95, your grade should be A. 96 or 86 to 90 should be B, and so on. So if your score is less than 60, then your grade is F. So how do we perform this one? Using the multiple F function, so I created here a template on how to create the syntax. So basically, let me just unprotect this one. And let me explain this comment here. So the formula goes like this. If the first logical test is true, then you print here A plus, which is the corresponding grade. But if it's false, then you create another logical test. And then if the result for this logical test is true, then the grade should be A. Okay. And then if it's false, you go again to the next logical test. And then if it's true, you print its corresponding grade. Now take note that the grade here is located at F6, okay? Because we are only referring to the average score of Dennis. So we need to change this one to F6. And then once we are done, we just copy and paste this formula to this cell. Okay, so I think this is already good. Copy and then paste and then hit OK. So as you can see here, the score is 91 and it falls in this range 91 to 95 with corresponding grade of A. Okay, now to apply this formula to the last student, again you drag this one. Okay, so this is now your multiple F function.